Welcome to Tech Career Podcast. Creating valuable and relevant content to encourage, motivate, and empower you to achieve your career goals. Are you struggling with finding meaning in your career? Perhaps you're stuck in a job and don't know how to advance. Lack of vision and planning can put us in a position of confusion because there is no real sense of direction. This is why creating a plan and having a vision for your career is so important. In today's episode, we will explore how we can create an effective vision and plan that will help you make better decisions for your career. And today's special guest will help us explore this topic. His name is Andy Storch. Andy is a professional coach, consultant, speaker, and author whose life mission is to equip others to live intentionally, love the life they live, and fulfill their full potential. Andy is an author of a book I really like and highly recommend called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, Christian, thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored that you reached out, and I'm excited to be here, and hope we can help some people.
Definitely, me too. You know, when I reached out, I was like, well, I'm going on a limb here. Let's see how it goes. And just receiving your reply, it was exciting. So thank you so much again for giving us some of your time.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
So for those who don't know you, why don't you share a little bit about yourself here to the audience?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, I spend a lot of my time primarily what I do professionally as a speaker and consultant and author. As you mentioned, I work with large companies primarily to teach people how to take ownership of their careers so that they are more engaged and are going to hopefully stay longer with the organizations they're with, but they have an idea where they want to go and they're actually taking steps towards that. Along with that, I have a greater mission to teach and inspire more people to take ownership of their careers, to be more intentional and really fulfill their true potential, as you mentioned. And so I do that through my book, through speaking, through podcasts, content I put out every day on social media. I'm also a husband and a father. I've got 2 kids and someone who just loves other people and life and having fun, big into health and fitness and other things, and truly owning life and trying to live life on my terms and inspiring others to do the same.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. And I know you have a podcast. We'll expand on that here shortly as well. We want to know more about your podcast. But owning your career, man, what a profound thought. You know, I mean, the concept of owning your career is pretty deep. I feel that many of us may go through our professional life, like going through the motions in a way, some kind of reactive, right? Mm-hmm. Reactive about our careers, about our future without real intention or purpose. So the concept of owning our own career can be challenging for many. So why don't we start by defining that concept? What's owning your career?
Yeah. And I've been on the other side of that. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book is I got into consulting several years into my career, and I had an opportunity to run workshops and work with lots of different large companies and really travel all over the world running these workshops, teaching things like leadership development, strategy, finance, business acumen. And I learned a lot about success and leadership along the way. And I also observed a lot of people really kind of drifting through their careers, operating in reaction mode, waiting for other people to tell them what to do or where to go, whether that be their boss or their colleagues or their parents, right? This is what you need to do next. And it didn't preclude people from being, quote, successful, right? You could still move up the corporate ladder. But I think a lot of people just weren't very fulfilled, didn't really know what was happening and didn't really feel like they were in control. And as I continue to take steps to build a career and a life that I love and take control of my own career, I realized that I had tools now that I could use to be able to help other people do the same and really help people find more fulfillment in their careers. And I think the big key to that is truly taking ownership. And what that means is taking full responsibility for your career and for your life, getting out of victim mode. There's so many people today that are operating with the victim mindset. Life happens to me. My boss screwed me over. This opportunity didn't come my way. I can't ever get ahead. Somebody cut me off in traffic, whatever it may be. This is about taking responsibility, taking ownership, and being really intentional and proactive with what you want to do. So figuring out where you want to go in your career, putting that plan in place, taking responsibility. If things don't go your way, then asking what can you learn from that so that you can make adjustments and, keep moving forward. And what I've found for myself and in talking with so many others is that when you really take ownership and take that responsibility, it's a lot more fulfilling. You feel like you're more in control of things, and it ends up being a lot more rewarding in the end as well.
That is so true. In fact, there is a quote that I want to read here from your book that I've been reading or listening to actually. But it said, it means having an idea of where you want to go, making a plan, and then taking steps to get there. And this next part really, really spoke to me because it said, it means that you don't wait for others to tell you what to do or where to go. End of quote. And that last part was eye-opening because I feel that sometimes, so many times, when you don't have a real plan or a strategy, a vision for your career, people are going to tell you what to do and where to go. Because you don't know where to go. So anything that comes your way, people are going to come and, you know what, you should do this, you should do that, and then you're all over the place.
Yeah,
that is really interesting.
Well, and there's a kind of a mindset. Generational, right? Especially from older generations and, different cultures, different places that, hey, don't rock the boat, just work hard and you'll be rewarded. But that's not always the case. And you might not be rewarded with the things that you truly want anyway. And what I've found, especially in the, in the corporate world, I know you work with people, particularly on tech careers, that if your boss or manager or someone doesn't hear from you, they think that you're probably fine, right? And they don't know what your aspirations are until you're willing to sit down and get really clear on those and then have that conversation, bring it to other people and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is where I want to go. And as you said, if you're not ever willing to sit down and do that, then you're just waiting for someone else to bring something your way. And, that's okay. Maybe you don't know exactly where you want to go. And many of us in the past have been drifting, have operated in reaction mode, have taken whatever's come our way. A lot of us start our careers because our parents say, hey, this is what you should go do. And you don't have anything better, any other better ideas, right? So you go follow their advice. That's okay. This is not about feeling guilty for the past. This is about waking up today and starting to spend time getting clarity on where you want to go, and then being really intentional and taking responsibility for that career path and starting to chart your own path towards whatever that might be. And it's different for everybody, right? For some people, it's, I want to be vice president or CEO one day. For many other people, it's, hey, I just want to be in a career where I feel like my work is appreciated, I'm paid fairly, and I'm able to have dinner with my family every night, right? And that's cool. Like if I don't make manager, like that's not a big deal. I don't need that, right? Everybody's different. But it's about figuring out what's right for you and then building your career to satisfy that.
That's a really good point. It's that definition of success. What does success really mean? And I feel that sometimes society has the understanding that success is always moving up, and that's not always true. There's a story that I learned when I was working for the Gallup organization. The Gallup organization has this assessment called Strength Finder, and after you take this assessment, to give you your top 5 strengths. Such a powerful tool. And one of the stories that I heard there was this guy who was a customer service representative, and he was the best. He really loved and enjoyed his job. He loved coming in and helping customers and solve issues, right? And so I think what happened was that he was doing such a good job that their managers thought, you know what, this guy should be the manager of this team because he's doing such a good job, right? And that's kind of like the natural progression. They offered them the job. He accepted it. And what was interesting was that he hated the job.
Right,
he was not performing. Yeah, he was miserable. And so he went back to the managers and asked for his old job back. And that was quite interesting because his success is really not always moving up. Sometimes it's moving sideways. So I think it's finding that those strengths, finding those things that you're passionate about, and then following that.
I'm glad that he had the courage and the humility to go ask for his old job back, right? Because ego is such a big driver for all of us in many ways. And oftentimes we get in that position and think, well, I've got to make this work. I can't go backwards, right? And if I can't make it work, then I'm a failure. And now I've got to quit and go do something else. When no, you got asked to do something that was outside of your comfort zone and you tried it and you hated it, or you're not good at it. It's not your skill. Why not go back and do the thing that you really like to do? And so the story you described is very common in organizations around the world. I do a lot of work in the talent development space. I'd say one of the most common challenge is exactly what you said. People do great work in a role as an individual contributor. And so the company says, well, hey, they're great at sales or IT or whatever, coding, software programming. Let's make them a manager, right? Which is a completely different skill, right? Like, oh, you're really good at programming, which is sitting at a desk and hardly talking to anybody. And now all of a sudden, you're going to coach other people and teach them how to do what you do. The same thing happens in sales all the time, and it almost always fails. Take your best salesperson and now make them a manager. Well, they just need to teach the other salespeople to do what they were doing. But it's not the same skill. It's not the same thing, right? And teaching is different from doing. And there's certain people that really love that and thrive in that, and others that, want nothing to do with it. And so this is where self-awareness comes in too, right? And really getting to know yourself and asking that question, do I really want that? Do I like being in a role like that? And would I take that trade-off, right? If, because the way things work today, things are changing a little bit. But for the most part, if you want the more senior title and you want to make more money, you oftentimes have to take a manager role, right? So you got to ask yourself that question about that trade-off. Like, if I know I might be miserable as a manager because I don't want to be, coaching other people and giving feedback, is it worth doing that for more money and the title? Or am I happy to just staying where I am, or looking for a lateral move, becoming more of a thought leader in my space, and potentially pursuing some other path that maybe it's not as lucrative, but I'll be a lot happier. And to come back to what you said earlier, you mentioned the definition of success. People don't realize this often, but you get to define what success means to you, right? Success is a very personal term. There is this idea of, quote, success in society, and someone that makes lots of money or has the big house or car, but like, who cares? Success for you is whatever you want it to be. And I will introduce this idea, if you don't have your own definition of success, is that for me, the definition of success is being happy with your life. Like, that's it. That's the only requirement. If you are happy, it doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Obviously, you got to make enough money to pay the bills. If you decide that you want to go on more vacations, maybe you want to try to go for that promotion. But if you're happy with your life, like, you don't need to try to go after the things your friends are going after. It doesn't matter. Like, live life for you. And that's part of owning your career and owning your life.
That is so true. That is so true. As I was thinking about this topic today, of creating a vision and creating a plan for your career, I remember looking back, and sometimes I did that and sometimes I didn't, right? In certain sections of my career, sometimes I was like, you know what, I want to become this. I want to be able to do this or do that. And I never really sat down and created a plan and drafted a plan, of how I was going to get there. I just knew that I wanted to get there. Now, eventually got there, but I wonder if I would have created a plan and created some sort of vision for it, if the road would have been a little bit easier and more enjoyable, right? Yeah. Because every step that I would have taken, it would be meaningful. Even the challenges, right, that I received, it would have been very meaningful because I knew where I was going.
Me too, man. Me too. Like, I wrote this book for my younger self. It's so funny. The most common piece of feedback I hear, or things I hear from people after they read my book, is they say, "Oh, I love your book. I really wish I had this when I was younger." And I say, "Me too." I'm like, "Me too. I wish I had it." That's why I wrote it for the people that are coming up after me. Because if they can get this earlier and avoid the drifting that I did in my 20s and start to put that plan together earlier, things are not going to go perfectly, right? They're not going to always go your way, but you can start to be a lot more intentional with what you're doing, more productive with how you're spending your time. You can accomplish a lot more and frankly, probably be happier in your career.
There's another piece of the quote that I want to read here, because I feel that in this society, you're right. It seems like there's a lot of blaming happening, and when you take your career, let me read the quote, and I think it'll give us a little more context. The quote says, "It means you don't blame others for your problems. Yes, there will be things that happen outside of your control, but owning your career means you focus most of your energy on what's in your control and keep moving forward." I would like to expand on that a little bit more, especially in today's society that we live in. How do we do that? How do we don't blame others and really just keep moving forward.
It starts with awareness and recognition, right? And saying, okay, and a commitment that I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to take ownership. And the ownership mindset, part of taking an ownership mindset is focusing your energy on things that are in your control. And when you start to think about it, you look around, what's outside of my control? Politics, the world economy, the weather, the leadership of your company, your boss, even your spouse, your kids, your pets. They're not in your control, right? You can influence them. People spend a lot of time getting angry and frustrated and paying attention to politics, right? There's really not much you can do other than voting every couple of years, unless you're going to get really involved, right? There's not that much you can do. And yet people spend so much time on that. I would prefer, it's not that I don't care about the things that are happening in the world, but I'd prefer to spend my time on the things that are in my control. And those include how I spend my time, how I take care of my health, how I treat others, how I show up for others, and how I respond to the events that are happening around me, right? So something can happen that you wouldn't have necessarily chosen. For instance, maybe your boss comes to you and says, and this is timely right now, as we begin 2023, we're doing layoffs. And I'm sorry you didn't make the cut, right? You're losing your job. We're going to give you 2 weeks or whatever it may be. This is happening for a lot of people right now. The victim says, screw these people. They're always screwing me over. I never get ahead. A person with the ownership mindset says, okay, that was out of my control. But what's in my control is how I respond to this. And I'm going to choose to treat this as an opportunity. Yeah, it's not great. You could take a day to be sad about it for sure, as with any challenge that comes up. But to say, I'm going to turn this into an opportunity. I'm going to make the best of this situation. And now I'm going to be intentional with my actions. And I'm going to, go find out what other jobs are out there. I'm going to set my intention, my vision for where I want to go, look for jobs that fit in with that, start doing some networking, building my brand, doing the things that are going to help me find that next thing. And what I've seen over time is that, and I'm big on mindset, and I love the idea of turning challenges into opportunities, is that people end up in these situations where, I lost my job. It seems like the worst thing in the world, but it was like a job that they were kind of like mediocre on anyway. They're like, never really loved it. And then they find the next job and it's actually their dream job. And they're like, I never would have found this if I hadn't been given this gift of being laid off. And so one more thing I want to add on that is the thing that's really helped me in this area is I made a shift a few years ago in my language. And it's going from the belief that life happens to you, which is being a victim, everything's happening to me, to the belief that life happens for you. Everything in life happens for you. What if everything in life is a blessing? Everything that comes your way is an opportunity, even the hard stuff. When you get laid off, when your boss yells at you, when your spouse is mad at you, your dog runs away. I mean, there's plenty of bad things that happen, right? That we wouldn't choose. And I've been through plenty of challenges myself, including some major health challenges. But what if we start to see those things as a blessing and believe that life happens for us? And then we can start taking these things and turning those challenges into opportunities. I believe it's so powerful and it's so rewarding to feel like, okay, I'm in control. I own this situation. I didn't choose everything that happened, but I'm going to take ownership of it now.
That is powerful. It's true. I actually experienced something like that in my career. And I remember being in a situation where I lost a job that I really liked. But before I even lost it, I was actually praying about it. Yeah, and my audience know that I'm a Christian. That my audience know that I pray about things, right? And I was praying about it. I was praying about getting a job, and I was very specific on what kind of job I wanted, kind of like what my dream job was. And during that time, actually, that particular situation, that job that I had and that I lost, I was miserable because I was doing things that I didn't want to do. Right. And I didn't really enjoy. And then remember driving there, and praying every day. Man, I don't want this job. I want this job, and I was kind of picturing it. I lost that job. It felt horrible. Like you said, I mean, there was some time where I felt like, man, what's going on? Right.
Even if it's not a job you like, right? You're still feel rejected, right?
Definitely you do. And it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to take some time to kind of grieve, that situation. But then what are you going to do afterwards? What are you going to do after that? And I think, my vision was, well, I want to get this job. So I started like you said, networking.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, I ended up getting a job that I really wanted, doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was so happy. It was a blessing, a complete
Yeah.
blessing. So I thank
Yeah.
God that I lost that job, because otherwise I would never found this other one.
That's right. You wouldn't have found this one. It's amazing. My story on that is that I wasn't laid off, but I was working in an analyst role for a big insurance company, and it was a job that I didn't find fulfilling at all. It was a good job, good company, but it wasn't a good fit for my strengths. And I started to really get to know myself and what my strengths were, and realized that, yeah, I could play with spreadsheets, but really I'm more of a people person. And so I went to my manager at the time and actually had the courage to, sit down and have this conversation and say, hey, I think that I'm stronger with people. I think it would really benefit me and the business if I was out in the field more, maybe working with our agents and taking on more of a people focused role. And he basically looked at me and said, no, get back to work. Your job is this, and this is what you're going to do. Now, he was one of those people that probably shouldn't have been in a manager role. He was more of an individual contributor. He wanted to be in the spreadsheets all day and not talking to me, right? But he said no. He wouldn't even entertain it, right? And at the time, it was incredibly frustrating. But I'm so grateful that he said no, right? Because that was the sign to me that, like, okay, this is not the job for me. I need to go find something else, which led to the consulting job I got after that, which was more of a dream job. And then that was the catalyst to me starting my own business. And I absolutely love my career and my life now.
Wow.
And it would be completely different if he, maybe he had said yes, and I'm still working there. That was 15 years ago, right? And maybe I'd be happy. But I'm glad he said no, because it led to me, going to where I am today, and absolutely love my life today.
Wow, that's awesome. The other thing I wanted to share with you, I feel that when you get in those situations, when you have a vision, when you have a plan, those situations become a little easier to handle. A little bit more with meaning, right? You approach it with more meaning and more intention. Yeah. So when it comes to a career vision, what's that? What's a career vision?
Yeah. So the idea of the vision is, it's really about just getting clarity on where you want to go in your career, and then starting to put together a plan to achieve that. You think about if you're flying somewhere, you get on a plane, the pilots in the cockpit, they know exactly where they're going, right? And they have a clear plan for how to get there. It's possible that the plan may not go perfectly, and they may run into some weather and need to fly up or higher or lower. When you get into a car to drive somewhere, you almost always have a clear destination in mind. And usually you have a plan to get there. And oftentimes you're outsourcing that plan to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever it may be, right? But you know where you're going. Most people in their careers have no destination in mind. They have no idea where they're going. They're just kind of waiting for that next thing. I'm going to do good work, and hopefully I'll be rewarded and be given something. Having that vision is about having clarity. And what I've found is the more clarity you have in where you want to go in your career, the easier it is to make decisions in those pivotal moments, whether it be the boss offers you a promotion, or you get laid off, or they just tell you, no, you can't do this. One of the examples I think I give in the book, or I like to give, is, let's say you work in finance, but you really like people and you're thinking about moving into HR. Maybe you're doing well in finance and your boss offers you a promotion, but it's going to be a lot more work, maybe more money, but it's not getting you any closer to that goal of what you want to achieve. And so maybe because you have that clear vision, you might be able to say, well, no, actually, I appreciate it. This is not what I want to do. I kind of want to get into HR, or I want to get into sales, or I want to get into, technology. Could you maybe help me find a way in that direction? And it also allows you, and this is not always easy. It depends on your relationship with your manager, but it allows you to be proactive and go have that conversation with your manager about what you want to achieve. And what I've found through dozens and dozens of conversations with people at all kinds of big companies is that one of the big challenges out there is managers and employees are not really talking that much about their careers. And a manager doesn't know, your manager doesn't know what you want, and they just assume like you're fine. Probably the only thing you do want is that promotion to the next thing, and I don't have that promotion right now, so I'm not going to give it to you. But what if you don't want the promotion? What if you actually want to do something different? If you're willing to sit down and have that conversation and share, here's my vision for where I want to go in my career. I love what we're doing now. And I appreciate everything you're doing for me, obviously tastefully, right? But here's my vision. And I really want to go get experience doing this over here. Could you maybe help me with that? And most people want to help others, right? They just need to know what you want, right? Like people love I love that. I've learned this over time. People love helping each other, but nobody can help you if they don't know what you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So you got to be able to communicate that, and you can't communicate it until you get clarity for yourself. And that involves, one of the hardest things that most people don't do, self-awareness, self-reflection, is sitting down in a quiet space with a cup of coffee or tea and a notepad and a pen for 30 minutes or an hour and just writing about your career and your life. Like, where are you now? How did you get there? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you like about your job? What do you not like? What would you like to do more of? What are you curious about? What are your values? What are your energizers? The things that really excite you? Where do you want your career to go? What are you really interested in doing? What's possible for you? And then maybe get some feedback from friends, colleagues, your manager, mentors, et cetera, and start to refine that. And, it's not going to go perfectly, right? It may not go exactly where you want it to go, and you're going to pivot and adjust over time. But the more clarity you have, the easier it is to make those decisions when they come along. When you're in that pivotal moment, whether it be you're offered something or something's sort of taken away from you, then you get to figure out what to do next.
So it seems like vision is that knowing the destination of where you want to get, right? It's more of a futuristic view of your career.
It's that long-term, clear destination of where you're going. And then you can start to decide on the steps along the way. I think it's still important to set goals, put milestones in place. Like, what do I want to achieve or do in the next 3 to 6 months that's going to set me up for success for that bigger vision? So if my goal is, for me, I want to be on bigger stages, right? And speak in bigger companies. So in order to do that, I need to be networking with the right people that are going to help me get to that place. I need to build the brand that is going to get me attention and get me in those places, right? I need to make sure that I've got a great message that is going to be resonate with the right people. I can start to work on those things and even set, smart goals around them, specific, measurable, actionable, relative, time-bound, but very specific goals that are going to set me up to succeed in that bigger vision.
Yeah. And there's a quote again from your book that I want to say here. And that quote, do you know where you are going with your career? A lot of people don't, but you would probably never get into your car or on a plane or even start walking unless you had an intended destination and knew exactly where you wanted to go. End of quote. I mean, that right there is so true. I mean, that's going to allow you not to just get a job just because, or get in a position just because. I mean, you don't just get in your car just because, right? You get in your car for a purpose. So I think each and every step that you take in your career, whether it is getting this job or applying for this other position, is going to have meaning behind it. There's a purpose behind every move that you make at that point.
Yeah. And things are going to change along the way, right? The company is going to change strategies. Your boss is going to ask you to do something different. Your spouse is going to get a job in a different city. All kinds of stuff changes all the time. Or maybe, a couple of years later, you decide I tried it. This is not what I want to do. I want to do something different. That's totally fine. It's just about having that direction, something to work towards. And I want to come back to, we talked about dealing with challenges when they come up, this belief that life happens for you, but challenges are going to come. There are, I don't know if you were going to get to this because you probably came across it in the book. There are 3 questions that I love to ask and inspire people to ask anytime a big challenge comes up. And the first question is, what is great about this? Look for the silver linings, because there usually are silver linings for almost every challenge or hard thing that comes up. Number 2 is, what can I learn from this? And number 3 is, what does this make possible? And you think about your example of losing your job. This is awful, right? But what does this make possible? Well, now it opens me up to go find a new job that could be even a better fit for what I'm doing. You could probably learn some great lessons from it too, right? Like maybe there were some things that you could have done in that last job that would have made you a more valuable part of the business and less considered for layoffs in the future, whatever it may be. But obviously there's some silver linings that come from all this stuff. When I think about 2020, I was just starting to build a business as a consultant trainer running these leadership development programs for companies. And I was traveling all over the place. And then COVID hit and completely shut my business down. Right. And it was incredibly challenging. But what was great about it was I had 2 young kids and I'd been traveling a lot, and I was now home with them all the time. I was home with my wife and kids, and I haven't been traveling nearly as much since then. And turned out to be a huge blessing, right? It also gave me more time to work on my book. I wrote my whole book in 2020 and became a catalyst for the business that I really wanted to build, which I eventually built around it. It took some time, right? I wanted to become a speaker. Well, there was no speaking gigs in 2020 or even like early 2021, right? But eventually that stuff started to come back, and now I've been able to build a business around it. It just took some time and saying, okay, this is happening for me. How am I going to make the best of this? What am I going to do with the situation that I have now? I'm going to take ownership of it. I'm not going to be a victim, and I'm going to make the best of it.
I love it. I love it. And it's true. I think depending on how you take each situation in your life, each challenge, how are you going to face this challenge? Again, are you going to be a victim, or are you going to be turning around and see the positive in it? Now, when we look at the vision again, what are the consequences, whether on the positive way and on the negative way, of not having a vision or having a vision?
Yeah. So having a vision, we talked about, it's going to give you more clarity of direction. Like you have something to work towards. So you can always, come to work each week and take a look at your goals and say, okay, I know what I'm working on this week. I can be productive and make progress towards something, which I find to be really rewarding. You feel like, okay, I'm working towards something. I know what I'm doing. The consequence of not having that vision and continuing to kind of drift in your career, waiting for something else to come your way, is that it's not as fulfilling, right? You might feel a little bit lost. You might feel like something's missing. You're certainly at the whim of your manager, your company, whatever people do decide to bring your way. And again, it's to say that hopefully you have a great manager, you do great work. They give you a promotion or they offer you things, and like you could still be very successful and happy without it. But you risk, nothing coming your way and being less fulfilled, right? You risk not knowing what to do when that opportunity comes up or when that layoff comes, and you're like, well, okay, I don't know what to do now, and really agonizing over decisions that would be a lot easier with clarity. So, example for me, as I was writing the book and I was sort of building this business and brand, and I had this vision for where I wanted to go, a very prominent person in my industry, thought leader, influencer, I connected with, reached out to me, and actually offered me an opportunity to work with him in his business and a role to like kind of help him build his business. And it was really a really cool opportunity. It was flattering, and something that maybe a couple of years earlier I would have jumped all over. It would have been amazing. But now I had this vision of building my own business. And I saw that if I accepted his offer, while it would be rewarding and good experience, it wouldn't be building towards my own vision. It would be building his vision, right?
Wow.
And so it didn't take me very long to turn that down, right? Very politely thank him for everything that he offered me and go on my way. If I didn't have a clear vision for what I wanted to do with my career, I probably would have agonized over that for 2 weeks and not known what to do. Right. And those decisions, they crush me sometimes. I have such a hard time with those, right? But because I knew exactly where I was going, it was a lot easier. It took, I thought about it for 24 hours and came back and said, thank you so much. I appreciate it, but this is not the right opportunity for me. And if you're doing great work, we're all going to get those opportunities, right? The recruiter's going to call and you're going to go, oh, this sounds good, but does it fit within your vision of where you want to go or not? Is it worth taking that interview, or can you say, hey, thank you so much, but I'm very happy working and going the direction I'm going?
That is so powerful, because so many times we get into the situation where we get offered great opportunities, or there are, things that we think, oh, this is awesome. This will be great for my life, for my career. And if you don't have a vision, you will take it. It will take it, and it might take you in a completely different direction where you were supposed to go. I think I've been there. I've been there many times where I'm just doing my thing, and then opportunities come and I take it. And then all of a sudden I realize, oh, wait, that's delaying me now from getting to where I wanted to go, So by not having a definition of that vision, you're going to be going in so many different directions, right? And so how do you build that vision, though? I mean, we now know that having a vision is very important, right? Yeah. And we know the benefits that it's going to bring to your life, to your career. But how do you start? Where do you start?
Well, it takes time. And I'll go back to what I said before. I think it really starts with that self-reflection, building self-awareness, sitting down in that quiet space with a pen and a notebook and a cup of coffee or tea, and really asking those hard questions about about your life and your strengths, your weaknesses. What do you love about it? What do you not like about what you're doing? Your values, your energizers, what gets you excited? What are you curious about? I think that's a really key one because, there was this movement for a while. People talk about finding your passion. And, if you find your passion, then you never work a day in your life. Right. And I'm always like, well, that sounds cool. But like, what if your passion is painting and on the side, and it doesn't pay any money? You still got to pay your bills, right? You still got to find a professional career, or you don't know what your passion is. So I'm a big fan of following your curiosity. Like, what are you curious about? What do you want to learn more about? What do you want to try doing? Especially if when you're in your 20s or 30s, like, oh my gosh, you've got so much time, right, to try different things. So what are you curious about? What do you want to learn more about? And where's that going to take you? Like, when you think about your life and your career 5-10 years down the road, where would you like to be? And you're not signing a contract. You're not going unless you're going into the military, right? You're not signing a contract. You can always change it later, but having that clarity is going to be really helpful. And if you're not sure or you want to hone it, that's where you can go and get feedback, right? Talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, talk to your family who know you and who you trust. Talk to your manager. This is what I'm thinking about for my career. What do you think? What do you see are the opportunities for me? One interesting thing I've learned over time is most of us are not very aware of our own strengths. We're very aware of our weaknesses, right? You've tried to do things and struggled and seen other people do it better. And you're like, God, I am not good at this, right? But when we're good at things, we just assume everybody else must be good at it. But it's not true, right? And other people are looking at you going, God, Christian is so talented at this thing. How is he so good at it? And so when we go talk to other people, we get feedback. We have an opportunity to learn more about our strengths. And those are things that we can maybe lean into, right? And there's a tendency to be humble. We're taught to be very humble in society. And so someone gives you a compliment and you're like, I just got lucky, right? But when several people compliment you on the same thing, and we're talking about skills, not your t-shirt, right? Like when people are complimenting on you, like, you're really good with people or explaining technical ideas, or you write great code, it's flawless, it's one of the best things. Listen to them, right? And maybe lean into that and say, okay, maybe this is one of my strengths and it's something I enjoy doing. Maybe it's something I really want to do more of. Maybe I want to pursue a career doing something like this. Maybe you work in a technical career, but people keep telling you you're so great at explaining ideas that maybe you should think about getting into technical sales or marketing or something like that, right? And marrying your technical knowledge with the people side of the business, if that's something you're interested in. So what are you curious about? What are you excited about? What do people keep telling you that you're good at? And then you just got to try things, right? Put that vision down, put some goals in place, and just go to work and see how it goes, and check in 6 months later. And if it's not working for you, then you can always pivot. You can always change.
I really like what you said about the pivoting, because that happened in my career as well, right? Where I was very heavy into hands-on technical support and things like that. But I realized that I really love people, and I really love public speaking, and I really love, talking and bringing solutions, right? And talking about solutions and translating the highly complex technical topics into easy to understand ones. And while I had a vision very early in my career of doing something like a network engineer, that pivot to being in a pre-sales role. And because of that pivot, I am so fulfilled. I love what I'm doing. I am actually in pre-sales, right? And so I love that. I love being able to be out there to do public speaking, to translate the highly complex issues into valuable, right, messages, and solving complex problems, right? And having that relationship with people. So I think for the audience, it's good to know that, yes, it's good to have a vision and a plan and know where you want to go, but don't feel bad if you realize, oh wait, but I need to pivot here, because I realize that there's all these other things that I now like, because as we grow, we change, right? I mean, our level of maturity changes, our needs change, right? Maybe you get married, maybe you have kids, right? And so all these things gonna change. So your priorities change. So there's nothing wrong with pivoting, but changing that direction in a way that is fulfilling everything around you as well, right?
Yeah, I love that. And there's just so much opportunity out there. And I love that you really leaned into your strengths. What do you enjoy doing, right? And trying to do more of that, and how it's become such a rewarding career for you.
Now, we're getting close here to to the last few minutes of the show. But before we finish, of course, there's a lot of things that I want to share with the audience. But when we talk about building a plan to be able to get you there, right? Well, for the audience, I highly recommend getting the book, right? Because the book has very, very good steps on how to do that. But is there anything that you can share with the audience here quickly on how to build a plan?
Yeah. Well, first of all, a goal without a plan is really just a wish. That's something I learned along my journey as well, right? And so It's great to put that vision together and say, well, I want to be vice president one day, or I want to work in marketing or HR, or I want to run my own business. That's cool. How are you going to get there, right? That's where the plan comes in. And if it's something that you're pretty familiar with, you can probably sit down and write down the step by step. Well, what would I need to get there? Maybe your goal is, well, I want to be director one day. Well, first I got to become a manager. I probably can do that by taking on 2 or 3 extra projects, getting regular feedback from my manager. Here's the steps. Here's the things. I need this technical certification. That's going to help me get there, right? Other things may not be as clear. And that's where you can start to do some networking. I love, the idea of connecting with other people who are doing the job that you want to get to. So whether that be within your own organization or get onto LinkedIn and do some informational interviews, reach out like, hey, Christian, I see you're working in pre-sales. That's actually something I'm exploring. I really want to try to get into in the next couple of years. Could we sit down and have a cup of coffee? Could I just ask you questions about how you got to where you are and like what you like about it? And, most likely, unless you're incredibly busy, like you're probably going to say yes, right? And then we get to have that conversation. I get to learn from you. And I've heard from a lot of people that do these informational interviews, and sometimes they come back and go, that was great. I can't wait to try this. And sometimes they come back and go, oh, that career is not what I thought it was.
Right.
This is not what I want to do. I didn't realize that he spent so much time talking to people. I do not like getting up in front of people, right? It's my biggest fear. I thought it was all technical stuff. So you get to learn from other people, like what they're doing, and you can start to match up to see if it fits your strengths. That can also lead to great opportunities too, right? When you're networking, your abilities, relationships, you talk to Christian about his career and you never know. He likes you and says, you know what, we actually just opened up another position in my department. I can get you an introduction or an interview, with the boss, and we can see if it's a fit, right? Those are the things that happen all the time when you're willing to be proactive, go reach out to people, have conversations with people, build a relationship. The whole world opens up, right? New opportunities open up all the time. But you can also get the information you need to start to put that plan together, which is really like taking, starting with the end in mind. What do you want to achieve long term? And then breaking that down. What do I need? What do I want to do in the next year, in the next 6 months, the next 3 months? Even what's like a weekly or daily habit I can put in place that is going to put me in position to achieve that. So for example, we said networking is a really big key to getting to where I want to go, right? So why don't I put a goal in place that I network and build relationships with 3 new people a week for the next 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it may be. I'm going to go on LinkedIn. I'm going to a company directory. I'm going to just reach out to people on email and schedule Zoom calls. If I do 3 of those a week for 6 months, right? I mean, you've got like 30 plus new connections and 10 of those might be duds, but 5 of them might be people who are like hiring or giving you great information on how to get ahead in your career. You just don't know until you reach out and have those conversations.
Really good point. That's a really good point. And it's very true. I mean, it has happened to me. I've done it, and there's a lot of benefit to doing that, especially the networking part. And maybe we'll expand on the networking part here in future episodes. But I'd like to now come back to you and to what you're doing currently. I'd love to talk about your podcast that you have and how can people connect with you and such. Can you tell us a little about your podcasts?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. So I have 2 podcasts right now. One is called the Talent Development Hot Seat, actually changing that to the Talent Development Think Tank podcast, which matches the conference and community I run in that space. Now that's specifically for talent development professionals, people who work in the training and development, talent development, learning and development field. That's a sort of a niche that I've worked in for quite some time. And I started a conference and a membership community in that space, as well as the podcast. And we actually have our next conference coming up on February 22nd and 23rd in Sonoma. So if anybody listening to this happens to work in talent development, check it out. All the information for that is on our website, tdtt.us, as in Talent Development Think Tank. I also have the Own Your Career podcast, which is kind of companion to the book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, which is available on Amazon. I know you found the audio version on Audible. So pretty much everything's on the podcast. You can also get the book. And then I have some bonus materials available on my website that can, if you don't want to read the whole book, walk you through the 5 steps to owning your career. We have the top 5 most common career mistakes that people make, as well as some other things that I do that help me be more successful that I recommend for people. And you can get all of that by going to ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/bonus.
Very good. And just for the audience, as always, I will be posting all of this information in the show notes on our websites. And that's techcareerpodcast.com. And I will be sharing a very specific dedicated page for this podcast where you're going to have access to all of this information, Andy's LinkedIn profile as well, Andy's websites. And so you can connect with Andy as well. Andy, as we close up, any closing remarks, any closing statements that you would like to share with us today?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Christian. And I want to remind everybody listening that nobody cares more about your career than you do. So, hopefully you have parents who are still around who love you. If you're really lucky, you have a manager or a boss who really cares about you and your career. But at the end of the day, nobody cares more about your career than you do. So you've got to be the one to own it. You've got to be the one to set that vision, to set your goals, to put a plan in place, to go spend time networking and building your personal brand and connecting with the right people and trying new things and just taking action on a regular basis to achieve your goals. And I find that when you have that clarity, when you're doing that, when you're taking ownership, it's just so much more fulfilling and more rewarding. And I think that's what we all want, right? So don't wait, start taking action today. And I think you'll be happy that you did.
Thank you for listening to Tech Career Podcast. Don't forget to check out our website for more information on how to connect with us by visiting www.techcareerpodcast.com. That's www.techcareerpodcast.com.